I really left my six-figure job to become an influencer, and I did it. Yo, that's wild. Hi, y'all. I'm Nicole, a travel influencer and independent social media strategist with 170,000 followers and millions of views. And I'm here to tell you how I transitioned from corporate America to this in basically a few months. It was not easy, like at all, and it took a lot of faith, but it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Because, corporate America sucks. I've always found it difficult to thrive in corporate environments because in order to succeed, you really have to put up a front. And I've always just wanted to be myself. Nose ring, locks, dark skin, and all. But there are so many gatekeepers of all shades and politics and unwritten rules, especially for Black women. Did you all know that actual studies also show that Black women face very specific difficulties in the workplace? Black women on majority white teams are more likely to be rated low performers, and Black women are less likely to get quality, actionable feedback. The type of feedback we tend to get is more like the equivalent of the vibe's just off. And women in general are more likely to receive personality feedback and less support. Knowing and experiencing all of this for nearly 10 years just to fight for a seat at the table to eat some unseasoned food let me know that it was time to go. Now, I was dragging my feet on this transition for a while because corporate America always felt like the safe bet. It's what they always tell us. But I always had a passion for travel, specifically safe travel for Black people and people of color. That all started during a terrible study abroad experience in Italy. We can get into that in another video. And one day I decided to start doing travel reviews on TikTok, where I already had about 50,000 followers or so, specifically though for Black people and people of color to be prepared for life abroad. And they did well. And coincidentally, this all aligned with different shifts that were going on that led me to a point where I was finally like, you know what? It's time for me to leave corporate America, take all of these skills that I've acquired as a social media manager, and offer these services on my own terms, independently. And with literally no solid backup plan, I decided to mutually separate from my job during a reorg during one of the worst times in the tech industry. I took my 2-month severance and I bounced. Oh, y'all, I was shook. I could not believe I did that. Not I left my job, my 6-figure job, talking about something. I'm gonna be an influencer in this economy. But you know what? When the spirit moves you, you gotta move. But I had a lot of support from friends and family and an action plan. Here's what I did. First, I literally spun the block on every single recruiter who had contacted me in the last year when I was like, oh, sorry, I'm not looking for a job right now. I was doing this to make sure that I could have some sort of backup plan because I didn't have one. So I got a lot of no's or a lot of people ignoring me, but it really only takes one yes. I didn't bother sending out too many applications, to be honest, because a lot of recruiters I was talking to at the time told me, now or back then was not a great time to just be sending out applications. It was all about connections because the market's really rough. Anyway, through what I was doing, I was able to finally land my first contract social media gig. And suddenly I was one step in the independent social strategist direction. The second thing I did was I started sharing my well-performing TikTok videos to Instagram. Now, I only had about 4,000 followers on Instagram. I wasn't really trying to post on there because, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but TikTok feels like it's for strangers, you could post whatever. Instagram requires a little bit more vulnerability. My friends and colleagues are on there. And Facebook is for family and anyone else who was able to make it on the last boat out of my 2018 Facebook friend request list. But I remembered hearing a creator once say, you aren't afraid of failing. You're afraid of other people seeing you try. And that was real. So I decided to try publicly. And those videos took off. The third thing I did was I started using LinkedIn like it was my job. Now, I wasn't super active on LinkedIn besides posting major accomplishments and updating new jobs, but I got to a point where I was like, okay, it's time to start using this thing like professional Twitter. I also learned how to master the humble brag. Now, I learned a lot of great tips on how to put yourself out there on LinkedIn and how to get leads and how to get noticed through a great friend of mine named Christina Garnett, who did all of this before me. And if y'all don't know her, you should check her out. Now, this LinkedIn step is a very important step because, yeah, it's great that you're popping on YouTube, TikTok, wherever, but you cannot forget LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where the influencer marketers are at. LinkedIn is where the people who work at the brands that you want to work for are at. This is where you can directly interact with them. Show them what you got. Show them that you're more than just a funny video. Show them your professional side. LinkedIn is not to be slept on. By the way, let me know in the comments if you want to know a little bit more about how to use LinkedIn to up your influencer game. Okay, fourth one, and this is also very important. I completely severed myself from a corporate identity. Oh my gosh, this one was so hard. We are taught that corporate America is the way. My whole life was just, how do you climb this ladder? Like climb, climb, climb. And then at some point I had to stop myself and be like, Nicole, you're climbing this ladder to what end? Are you going to spend the rest of your life just trying to break this glass ceiling? And what's the point? It was essential for me to deprogram my mindset and to completely separate myself from identifying so heavily with where I worked. And once I did that, I was able to accept, like, okay, as long as I am able to continue to pursue my ultimate dream, which is content creation, it doesn't matter what job I'm doing to fund that process, even if it's not super glamorous. But for me at least, and maybe for a lot of you, sometimes we get so caught up in the prestige of the name, the title, and all of that, when for me, I was like, I don't actually care about that, because that's not actually what I want to be doing. Content creation, being a travel influencer, that is what I want to be doing. And if that means wherever I'm working to fund that is not someplace I want to shout at the rooftops, whatever, it's something that I'm just doing for now. And I can operate with that understanding that this is something that I'm doing right now to fund something way bigger in the future. This change in mindset really kind of eliminated the fear of failure for me, because I realized, like, one, there's no world in which I end up on the streets. And two, there's often always a job to be had. The problem is we just don't always want those jobs because they don't scream prestige. But when your identity is tied to where you work, it's hard to accept anything other than that. I left my job at the end of January 2024. Now 100,000 followers, 3 new cities, 1 new country, quite a few brand collabs, and several new clients later, I am so glad I did this. Now, this life isn't easy. It takes a lot of faith, and for me, it took a lot of prayer. Continues to take a lot of prayer. Because you constantly have to be selling yourself and finding new ways to keep your audience engaged. But if I can do it, so can you. Like and subscribe for more tips and tricks on what I did to go about this transition, as well as travel stories and travel content.